Hello friends, this is our Black Friday deal running through the weekend. 20% off individual courses utilizing the code listed here, as well as an additional 10% off the already 20% off bundle of both courses together. A lot of people are still waiting to get into the chat room and live stream community, and those that finish the courses get automatically added to an express list. But once you are on that list, you still need to go to the website membership page and sign up in one of the 2 spots that open up each day. Now, last week we had a day where both spots did not get filled. So you need to go to that website and stay persistent, stay patient, as we are doing this to ensure that we do not flood our chat room with new people, new questions. We're trying to keep it as productive and as efficient as possible. So keeping it to 2 people a day does that. We appreciate all the support. Let's get to the charts. Hey everyone, looking at some small cap names. These are the names that our members voted on for the video. OGI, MPXEF, TGOD, ITHUF, RIV, TRST, HEXO, and ACRZF. Also heading into this week, we've already had our major Canadian MJ earnings this season. Now we're looking at major US MJ earnings, and this is the list of everybody that's got earnings this coming week. And there's certainly a handful of those names. So my personal trading strategy is I do not hold positions heading into earnings because it's just a gamble. We've seen plenty of bearish reaction in this last month to Canadian MJ that we are going to play it cautious and watch to see if these tightening ranges that are forming on a lot of individual names, if it's earnings that lead to the break. But certainly lots of volatility and opportunity after earnings. So if these names do see some weakness, we'll be watching at the potential of oversold bounces. So starting it off with OGI, the weekly time frame has a very clear base of support being built at the $5 psychological mark. And the lowest price that we've seen here is $4.91, but we've bounced off $4.98, $5, $4.91, and now $5 again. So a stop loss under $4.91 and bottom fishing that support level has certainly paid off multiple times. And right now we're looking at a tightening range where anything under $6.78 is just a lower high. So I would anticipate to stay within this tightening range if we get a little bit more follow through. Right now, the bears still have the upper hand because we're sitting just under 10% above that support level, but resistance from where we stand is about 25% away. So we're closer to breaking support than resistance, but if the bulls can get some more follow through and get us back to the middle of this equilibrium, we could stay within this pattern until the new year, which again, tightening weekly patterns and then the breaks of those patterns are ideal in terms of looking for trade opportunities. So I'm liking these names that are setting up with these tightening ranges. On the daily time frame, to zoom in for more details, we can see it's a bit of a descending triangle pattern with our support level, resistance, support, lower high, bounce off support. Anything under 598 on the daily will just be a lower high. So tightening range even so on the daily, and you could use that shorter term time frame if you want to be more aggressive. Perhaps a bullish entry on a $6 break, keeping in mind that we have to break 678 for that weekly chart to get the follow through. So if we see a bear break under $5, the next support we're looking down at is 455. So that would obviously trigger some stop losses and we would see potentially a 10% drop from there. So it's all about this lower high pattern on the daily and whether or not the bulls can break this level. With the Canadian MJ video I did yesterday, we can see some of the names, or really only one, TLRY, has broken the daily lower high pattern. Cron is close to doing it. Some other names, ACB and APHA, are attempting to do it. But USMJ is in a similar spot where the daily trend is still lower highs, keeping the bears in control. And it's up to the bulls to break that lower high pattern and change the trend to get any kind of follow through. MPXEF, this is the US version, as I cannot chart the CSE easily on my trading view here. But we've got our high, low of the pullback, lower high, and the bulls are scouting for a higher low compared to 643. Anything above 643 will keep us in this tightening equilibrium pattern. But again, it still favors the bears because we're much closer to breaking that support, about 10% plus away, than we are to breaking resistance, which would be about 30% away. So keeping, maybe not that much, 25%. Same thing roughly as OGI. So bulls need to form a higher low on this weekly time frame, and to do so, we have to break the daily lower high pattern. And at this point, we can see we just set a couple resistance levels, 798. Another resistance level at 7.6, and the bulls are attempting to hold this support of 6.946. So you can see the last 6 days we've traded within this pattern. And again, if you've watched the Canadian MJ video that I did, this looks a lot like what ACB and these other names are trying to do, trying to hold support from last week and trying to break resistance. TLRY already did it. No one else really has aside from that. 7.6 key resistance, 6.946 is key support. So another tight range to be watching. T-God on the weekly time frame, we had our low, high of the bounce. Here's the bulls looking for this higher low. Risk to reward is a pretty decent setup right now. Equilibrium is very clear on the daily with a double bottom down at 298. Stop loss under 298 is the clear level. Anything under 371 is just a lower high. So it's very similar to everybody else. The support level is very clear, and we have to change this daily trend to be looking for the bull break. But even if we get the bull break of 371, we zoom out to the weekly, and if we can't break 498, even the bull break of 371, we still have to be cautious of the weekly lower high being set. So with all these patterns and how they're shaping up, I'm watching the weekly time frame in the longer term, and that means I need to be more patient because, again, for the exact reason I just said, we can see bull breaks of these daily time frames, but we are going to anticipate that unless there's significant news, maybe the farm bill, would spark some momentum, but unless there's significant news behind the bull breaks or increasing big bull volume, we are anticipating weekly lower highs and continued tightening ranges into 2019. So if I were personally playing these bull breaks, I would be looking to lock in profit sooner rather than later, and then patiently waiting for the weekly time frames to continue to tighten and then give us that clear signal early 2019. ITHUF, another one on the weekly time frame where we have our top of the bounce attempt. We hit a new lower low, another lower high. Here's the bulls trying the higher low compared to 413. Have to hold 413. And really, ideally, have to hold 450 to give us the higher low, and then need a bull break of 505. We're closer to a bear break than a bull break. So at this point, the bears are still favored. Very similar to everybody else, but a little bit different because we closed at the low of the day. We pulled back. We haven't even tested that 450 support yet. And you can see on OGI, as an example, we already held that support, and we've gotten a little bit of bounce followed through off of it. But you compare that to our ITHUF, we have not already held support, and we have not gotten a bounce with some follow through. So a little bit more developed in some of these names than others. Bottom line is bears have the slight advantage in the short term on these last 6-7 days tight ranges that we're watching. And we have to see a bull break, keeping in mind that even when we zoom out, still going to look for that weekly lower high. RIV needs to change momentum on the daily time frame. So we have the low, high of the bounce with resistance at 414, higher low established at 370, and now another top at 413. So a triple top at 414 at this point. If we break that level, we're looking up at 450 and 465, and the must-hold support is 370. So we'll see if the bulls attempt that level again. You better believe that there's going to be stop buys, just like when you have a clear support level for, let's say, OGI, for example. If we break 491 on OGI, we're going to see stop losses trigger. We're going to see the opposite here if we get a bull break of this triple top at 414. We're going to see that as an indication that traders make entries, and we're going to look for some potential follow-through if we see that bull break. So keep an eye on RIV because it's such a clear resistance level that when it does break, we will look for a little bit of follow-through. The question is, can we break it early next week, or do we need to consolidate and form another support level in the upper $3 range before giving that another attempt? And watch the exponential resistances here as well. This is the 12 period, but it's been rejecting the bounce attempts for the last month plus. But worth keeping an eye on RIV to try and shift this momentum as the weekly time frame is coming off all-time lows. We have a tight inside bar, and we'll be watching for the potential of follow-through. TRST, this is one to watch as well. Once the momentum shifts on the weekly time frame, we could be seeing some potential solid upside to look for that weekly lower high. Inside bar here as well. Have to break that bullish, but it's the daily details that we need. Low at 7, high of the bounce at 946. A lot of volatility in there. Higher low, 743. And then we just saw the bulls head right up to resistance of 860. And then after 860 is 946. So those are two resistance levels that we're keeping an eye on that the bulls need to break. We have solid bull volume, not only on this day, but then declining bear volume, increase in bull volume, declining bear volume, increase in bull volume. You get the idea. This is what the bulls want to see start to happen. This is definitely a name to keep an eye on, and we're watching for a break of 860 first thing to give the initial indication. And then after 860 again, 946. This is one of the better setups that I like because the weekly time frame, after such a huge bull move, we gave the vast majority of it back. But equilibrium is the most likely scenario when you see this wide of a range. So we are looking for the weekly higher low to form compared to 628. And if we get some follow through here, we will be looking for the bulls to make their way back up towards $10. Keep an eye on TRST as well. HEXO, tightening weekly. Low, high of the bounce, and now bulls are looking for the higher low, ideally off of 545, but we need some more follow through to be believers that that support level can hold. So again, to change the daily lower high pattern, we have to see a bull break of 613. That's the first signal for the bulls as they attempt this little higher low here. But if we break 613, we zoom out to the weekly and realize that even if we break 613, we need another 20% after that to break the weekly resistance. So the most likely scenario would be a bull break on the daily, but keeping in mind that the weekly lower high is likely to be set. So again, another one where the daily bull signal doesn't mean we're home free as the bulls, because the weekly time frames still have so much space where we could still form lower highs and maintain those tightening ranges. Acreage here, ACRZF, recent IPO. I'm going to be watching this one for the break of the daily equilibrium that's anticipated. All-time low, all-time high. Higher low was 2049, and now we're looking for the lower high around the $24 area, 24.25. Once we set that lower high, we'll look to pull back and form a higher low compared to 2049, and then we'll see this range break sometime early to mid-December and look for a spike in volume and a spike in opportunity and volatility once that tight range does break. So at this point, being all cash, I love these setups that are forming because they're nice and tight, they're nice and clear levels, and I do believe that the bulls are going to be showing up here sooner rather than later. And again, you have to be watching what the overall market is doing, and at this point now we're paying extra attention to oil. I highly suggest watching the commodities video and the overall SPY video that I just did, because when SPY does get a bounce going and when oil does get a bounce going with some follow through, these names are positioned fairly well to break the daily lower highs and see some follow through on the weekly time frame. Whether or not we can break weekly resistances to shift momentum remains to be seen. I do believe the size of the market bounce would play a significant role in that, and trying to predict that when the market bounce does come, how significant is it going to be? That's too much guessing for me. So just taking it one day at a time. But the most interested names that the names that I'm most interested in at this point are the names with the clear lower highs like RIV, the triple top, TRST, very interested in it for the break of the daily lower highs and for the weekly time frame to finally get some bounce to follow through. OGI, also very interested. And ideal scenario for me personally would be to see a bull break on the daily, set weekly lower highs. I'd love to see these weekly time frames continue to tighten into early January. Of course, that's because, like I said, I am all cash, and I want these patterns to get as tight as possible because that's when you get the most clear follow through when the breaks do occur. So keep an eye on the bulls. It's been a very bearish space recently. The market's been very bearish. Oil has fallen off a cliff for 7 weeks in a row. I do believe that we're going to have at least a short-term little shift in sentiment approaching before the end of the year, let's say. So keeping an eye out for it. But again, protect your trades, because even if these daily resistances break, weekly resistances are not likely to break anytime soon. So we'll see how the sector reacts to all of these earnings. Again, it's an action-packed week as far as earnings are concerned. And out of the names that we just looked at, we've only got MPX and ITHUS, or HUF. I believe those are the two names that we're watching on this list that do have earnings. So this daily pattern is going to be dictated by the reaction to earnings, whether it's bullish or bearish. And the bulls really want to hold these lows on both MPX and ITHUF, IAN, because if we break that support level, it will be very notable to continue to shift that momentum in favor of the bears in the longer term pattern. So thanks again. Hope you have a good weekend, and we will see you early this coming week.